Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Take a Look. My name is Dave McSporran,
My name is Felipe Escobar.
and joining us today is very special guest, Coach Phil Parker, who recently won the OUA Coach of the Year for his work with the Laurentian Voyageurs female team. So, welcome, Phil.
Great to be here, guys.
So, Phil, we were hoping to talk to you a little bit about sort of the program this year, like how has it changed? You know, maybe even you can speak over a number of years. You can talk about this year because I know, well, when we started, how many? There was like 9 guys that went to OUAs.
In my first year, there was 9 because we had 10, but Zach, that was when he broke his collarbone or whatever. So we had 9 actually swimming now. So it's a bigger team this year.
Yeah, no, it's. I guess the last 5 years has been pretty. It's been really good. The biggest thing I notice is the onus everybody's putting on one another to step it up in the pool and to push each other day in and day out. And I think we're getting a lot more quality done day to day in training. And I think that's why everybody's swimming so well, is just, having those numbers and having that support on a daily basis. It does make a difference for sure.
You're a man of routine because we always know kind of every year what's kind of going to happen, right? But this year, it changed a lot. You went from training camp being a lot harder. Well, that's what we thought because we
had more volume.
More volume, but things were changing. What was that kind of that mindset going into this year?
I mean, you gotta keep going, right? And you gotta get tougher every year. You can't just do the same thing. And the format's the same, the cycles are the same, but we've got to get more challenging and more creative in the pool. And I knew we had some talent coming in, so I wanted to, rather than just push them, you gotta push the group. And it was a big change, and we're going to keep striving for better things year to year for sure.
Yeah, and it was interesting. This year was a complete sort of flip from what we've seen historically. Historically, we've seen a large women's team and a smaller men's team, and now we had the complete reverse, a large men's team, and we had some successful swims from the men's side. But you won your award specifically this year for your work with the women's team, so developing that talent over the course of this year. Do you want to talk about that specifically?
Yeah, there's no doubt we got some great recruits on both sides, and the numbers are always good. And it's a women's coach and a men's coach, but we all know with our sport we train together. Mm-hmm. So it's very hard, outside of the competition to pull you guys apart because, you're not just training the women at one time and you're not just training the men at another time, you're training everybody. So, I think the men had a big part in the women's success on just being there and the day-to-day training. So, but for the women, I think they did very well this year. I think our top placing was 6th, and this year we battled for 4th, right? Yeah. So we were just out touched by Guelph for 4th. So I think, in terms of the standings, the women did a really good job this year, and it was exciting for them.
What was really funny was that how surprised you were when they announced it. Because we were all like, "What of the year?"
And yeah, I wasn't expecting it. There's it's kind of like I said it before. It's not why we get into the profession, but it's nice when your peers recognize that you've had a good year. And yeah, I agree. It was a big surprise for sure.
Yeah, and it's also cool, even just the range of swims that we have now. It used to be very, we had a couple guys and girls in a couple events, but we have people swimming in all the events now in finals at OUAs, right? And our U Sport qualifiers were all different strokes, right? We had breaststrokers now, we had our butterflyers. Nat makes her trials cut in a distance event, and so it's huge growth for the team.
And we were making finals in a lot of races. It wasn't like just 2 or 3 people that were making it. It was like we had somebody kind of in every single final, which was
that was one of the exciting things. Is pretty much every race we had somebody to highlight in the finals program, and that's sort of where everybody's mind should be for next year. And okay, so yeah, let's get the guys going in every single finals now, right? And try to get to that level and build from there for sure.
So now this year was an exciting year for Laurentian in that early on in the season we had a chance to race big teams like U of T and Western, having been in that Division 1 this year, and next year Laurentian will be in Division 2.
Yes.
So does the approach shift at all heading into divisionals compared to this year? Are we doing the Moneyball strat? Like, how are you able to speak to that this early? I don't know.
I mean, if I had to predict now, I think we'd want to go to try and win for sure. It's always exciting when you can put it all out there and try and bring home the banner. You don't get opportunity very often, so it is a different strategy when we go into the other division. It's more about trying to get the individual placings and race those guys. You're going to have to beat to either podium or to get into A final or to get into B final. And where we place isn't as much of a factor. But yeah, I think next year, if all goes well and we're over this little pandemic issue and we're able to go to Florida, I think it'd be very exciting to see how the swimmers respond off that training camp early November heading into divisionals. So we'll definitely be going down, in my mindset now, guns a-blazing for sure.
That's crazy. When I heard that news, I was like, wow, in November. That's crazy.
And so now that you've split up the training camp for next year into 2 blocks, historically, the Florida training camp has always been more of that sort of sprint, feeling very quick training camp. And then the Sudbury one, at least from our perspective, was very volume heavy. It was sort of just, grind through it, get it done. Are you going to sort of still stick to those sort of routines, given that they're at different times of the year now?
Yeah, there's some unknown still for Florida in terms of where we're going to be training. We'll probably going to the new pool, the Selby pool, because there's no teams there in November, and it's a much better facility, which means we could probably get a little bit of long course to start things off. So the majority of the training camp in Florida will be short course yards for sure, and we'll definitely be doing the vast majority of that camp with speed as the focus. And then, for the shorter camp after Christmas, heading into the start of second semester, it'll be some more fitness work. Maybe not quite as of a grind, but more fitness oriented and 200 oriented versus the sprint stuff.
Very cool. Right on.
It's really cool. So for now, let's talk about OUAs, right? OUAs has always gone faster. The U Sport time is always getting quicker. But this year, U of T got dominated at U Sport with 2 teams being ahead of them. So how is that kind of OUA being competitive versus All Canada, and how is that moving forward?
I mean, it's U of T is always sort of a top 3 team or top 2 team many years, right? So, there'll be some juggling between Toronto, UBC, and Calgary for sure. There's just so many high-end swimmers in those regions that just sort of trickle down to those schools. There's, Toronto being the exception. There's a lot of universities in Ontario, and recruiting is pretty aggressive. Toronto is sort of that top choice for a lot of the top kids. But when you're looking at Calgary and UBC, those are really the 2 choices when you're talking about those 2 provinces. So there's a lot of kids that just sort of head out to either UBC or Calgary. They do some recruiting from Ontario, but they've just got a lot of good kids out there that stay local, and they're always going to be competitive. But I want to beat Toronto. Like, everybody wants to beat Toronto. That's the goal. You try and recruit. You try and get as many good swimmers as you can to be challenging of them. But you're sort of having these smaller goals of taking other teams down before you get up there. But if I'm doing this for another 20 years, then I've got some time to plan it out and do what you can.
Well, and it's remarkable how far the school has come in such a short period of time. I know you'd mentioned very recently this span of about 5 years is the span with the most school records being toppled in a very long time, right? And I know just from speaking to other athletes on deck and even people that aren't on that swimming scene, Laurentian is very much on the map now compared to where it was when I was applying to undergrads and everything. There was a lot of where is that?
Oh my god!
But people know Laurentian now, and so it is on the map. And I think that's kind of that first stage of recruiting that you're talking about to get those people to come up here and buy into the program. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's great when they can come and spend a weekend with us. We do a good job at the recruiting weekends. You guys do a fantastic job showing them what we're all about. And it's just getting them here. It's getting them to commit to that weekend to come up and hang out with us. But it is, there's 21 universities in Ontario. There's a lot of choice that they have. And, you just have to try and reach out to as many kids as you can. You do your best, but yeah, we will have some good recruits coming in next year. We already have some committed recruits, and we with the smaller female team, you want to build those numbers up again. Not that we don't want any guys. We're going to get a good handful of guys, but you want to do everything you can to get those women's numbers up as well, and make sure you have 18 to start the season.
Now, quickly, we talked a lot about swimming, but to wrap up here, what are some of the quarantine activities that you and the family are partaking in, if any?
Yeah, there's it's the weekend, so we loosen the reins a bit, but no, we gotta keep him active academically as much as he doesn't want to be. So we've got Tamara's been on this since day one, so there's lots of resources here. We have our fun. He does his video games. We take Alice out. We go to Laurentian. We walk the trails and get some fresh air. But it's different. It's definitely not something I'm used to. That's for sure. Like I said, I'm a creature of habit, so everything's sort of planned. But I got to be honest, it's nice sleeping in. It's nice not having to go off at 4 and.
With this
it was a little busy at residence there, getting everybody at Huntington all figured out and who's going to go and who's going to stay. But after Sunday, there's only going to be a small handful in Huntington, so things are going to die down until we can sort of flatten this curve out and get back to our normal routine.
I have one final thing, and if you had the team right now, and they're like, because we couldn't do a final speech, you couldn't say your final goodbyes because of the coronavirus. So if you had the team right here, what would you tell them going into next year?
I just keep your eye on September and don't let all the current events going on sort of sway you. I'm going to be sending out a lot of emails on how to sort of keep everybody mentally and physically sharp, no matter what the situation is. They're going to be making a decision about the Olympics soon. So it's not just swimmers at our level. It's all the swimmers across the world are facing uncertainty right now. But swimming will go on. I don't foresee any issues with the September startup. So we have to sort of get that fire from OUAs and divisionals all stoked up again and get ourselves ready to go. And everybody has to do their part over this time frame we have and this time we've been given to stay mentally sharp and to do work. Everybody can get strong in the house for sure.
Awesome. All right. That'll wrap us up here. Thanks so much for taking the time, Phil. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
And congrats again on the great year. So that's all for today, guys, on this episode of Take a Look. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.
All right.